being on the show, it just consumes you. It consumes every part of your life. That is when I began to learn so much more about the friendship group that I thought I had, and a couple of them that weren't genuine. It was a friendship of 15 years, so it was really difficult to have that played out on screen. They call it reality because it sort of becomes your reality. I always say when things are that hard, it's probably because we're doing the wrong thing, we're following the wrong path. I had to move away because I had to evolve. You know, I'm not saying that you obviously meet somebody and that you're going to split up with them, but there is a potential that that might happen. There's sort of an acceptance of like, this is the end.
I presume you're referencing the split from Wes, and that must be a huge thing because obviously you've been together, I think, was it like about 25 years? Welcome to the show, Leanne. Thank you so much for being with us. I really, really appreciate it. I want to kind of dive in initially. I know you've been on an incredible journey, and I think there's so much that's going to be really valuable for people to hear about the journey you've been on and the things that you do now. I think we have to start with the show, Real Housewives of Cheshire. It was a big part of your life. I know you did 6 series of that. And I would just love to hear a little bit about now on reflection, you know, all these years later, when you look at that period of your life, in your words, what was that experience like? And importantly, what were the main lessons you've taken from that experience?
It was a whirlwind, to say the least. And before the Housewives, it was obviously I was in the bubble of the WAG, you know what I mean? And that was the label that I was given before that. And even though I wasn't really in the limelight, so to speak, but it was very daunting, like stepping into that, you know, the arena of the public domain fully. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I always say no regrets, because that is sort of the beginning of when I began to learn so much more about myself, or the realization of the people that were around me, the friendship group that I thought I had, and a couple of them that weren't genuine in that. I mean, the show in itself, it's about bitching and backstabbing, as well as like the good moments. And I always say, you know, when we had the laugh and we were joking around, that got as much of a good response than it did the arguing. But people just loved the arguments, didn't they? So, well, they still do. So, and it was quite tough. It was exciting in the beginning, and then as it went on and things evolved, and the realization of the TV show, and the way it was produced, and you know, things were manipulated, and yeah, it got really tough for me in the end. And the breakdown of the relationship that I thought was a genuine one, all that came to light, and obviously being in the public domain, it was hard with the backlashes that came with it, because nobody really knew the extent of what had gone on behind, like in reality, and
right,
how
because it doesn't all get shown, and what is shown's edited and fabricated, right?
Yeah, so it was really tough, and I wasn't in a great place mentally when I decided to leave at the end. But yeah, it was sort of the beginning of me really stepping into my power, if you will. And there's been a couple of moments that's happened in my life. One in particular was when I walked out on an abusive relationship, you know, and when I've really felt that empowerment and the realization of I hold the power, and, you know, it's just these big things, these big moments in our lives that happen and make us realize how strong we are. And yeah, walking away from that was the best thing I did. Doing it was one of the best things I did as well.
Yeah, okay.
And having the courage to do that, because you do get wrapped up in the fame thing, and, you know, people knowing who you are, and then it is easier to sort of, you know, do anything on a personal level to make a business, or you know, and being asked to go on shows and things like that, and it is easy to get caught up in that and think, oh well, you know, then nobody will, you know, buy what I'm selling, or nobody, you know. So that's been like but saying that, on the show you automatically think that's one of the reasons why I went on it, because I had a children's clothing range I was doing, not this one, another one. I thought, well, it's a perfect opportunity to get it out there. But in actual fact, what they're showing of your business was like minuscule, and it wasn't really about that. It just turned into, and actually didn't really do much for your reputation anyways, you know, in business. So yeah, so that was it's all been a huge amazing learning experience. I'll say the Housewives, definitely.
Talk to us a little bit more about the reality of how that did impact you mentally, because people can hear that and brush over, but look, this was 6 series that you did, and I think you're in the public eye. You know, on one aspect, there's the online hate and the papers writing things and millions of people having an opinion on you that you've never met. So I know a common theme a lot of people struggle with when they're trying to do something substantial is that fear of judgment and fear of getting hated and disliked. So I'd love to know a little bit more about how you handled that, but also just mentally, like you said yourself, it is a show around bitching and backstabbing. And I know myself, I may or may have not, I can't confirm at the moment, just recently filmed a reality show myself. So I may or may not understand that the way these things are produced, you're being put in very much fabricated environments that you wouldn't, there's things you just wouldn't go and speak to that person about. You'd avoid it because it makes no sense, but they want the drama. But equally, what I know is you spend sometimes hours and hours waiting to film that scene where you've got that thing to get off your chest, and it's building and building and building. So sometimes you are more stressed and tired and irrational. So, and I don't think a lot of people that maybe saw you on the show or whatever will really understand that. So just tell us a little bit more about that and the reality of it.
Yeah, so going into it, you know, I always, judgment has been a massive thing for me that I've had to overcome. And even now I still have my little moments of self-doubt and, you know, fear and judgment, even just speaking about things that I'm speaking about now. And, you know, there's a little bit of a niggle of like that imposter syndrome. And, you know, somebody will sometimes pop up and say, well, who are you? You're just like a real housewife or a wag, you know, who are you to give advice? And like speaking from experience, because that's all we can do. But going into it, I was kind of like seen as like the girl next door, and I was the nice one. And I've had so many people come up to me and said, oh, I always liked you, and you were the nice one, you were the genuine one. And it's nice to hear. But when I went into it, I just was like, I'm going to be myself. Like this, they can't edit if I don't give them anything to edit. And the first series, the first few episodes actually, and we was in the toilets, and I was meant to go in and question Magali about these free tickets. And I don't know if you've seen the show, it was to do with Dawn's Ball. And they pulled me to one side, and this is what they do, they get in your head, you see, and they were like, oh, well, you know, we just don't know what to do with you, you're a big girl next door, you know, and almost like not threaten me, but like give me a bit of a like, oh, they're going to get rid of me if I've got no storyline or if I've got nothing going on. And so subconsciously I went in there to have a fight, to have an argument, because I knew that they wanted me to bring something on the show that was going to be exciting. So I did that subconsciously, but I felt like when I was doing it felt like it was authentic, and I was coming from like my, you know what I mean? And part of it was, but I wouldn't have gone into the toilets. I wouldn't have really cared so much. Do you know what I mean? I definitely
do you kind of look back on some of it and think, God, I was just in this mad bubble, and actually in real life, things just, I wouldn't have said those things. Why did it affect me that much? Because it's so pressurized, right?
Yeah. But I mean, like, obviously moving forward, when I started to get started the realization of the friendship, should I say, and then started to call people out on or call this person out on what they were doing, that then very quickly became apparent that that person wasn't my friend, and then it moved on. So all that was like real genuine. When you see me crying in Dubai, when you see me breaking down, and that was genuinely, you know, it was a friendship of 15 years. So it was really difficult to have that played out on screen, and especially people that were her fans like really attacked me, you know, and I wasn't a good friend, and, you know, without knowing anything. And I always say I grew thick skin very quickly going on the show, because you have to, really. And you think that you're nobody, you just think everyone will like you because if you're being like yourself, and then you need to realize very quickly that you're not everyone's cup of tea, and, you know, people will side with other people. And so that was really hard to swallow. Even on the first episode, I remember Twitter, like, just people saying like, you look really old, you've got a crooked mouth, and just horrible things. I got real thing like when I do talk out the side of my mouth. So, you know, like, and it's things that you remember as well, you know, but the hate was real, you know, the hate was awful. But doing all the stuff for the work that I've done now, even like during the show, I've realized, you know, it's about them, what's going on in them internally. You know, they're the ones that are watching at home and feeling that they have to comment on your appearance or, you know, things that have been said, and they buy into it so much. Even now I still get people saying, are you and Dawn going to make friends? And, you know, I think that you, and it's just like, wow, it's crazy. And it's the distraction, isn't it? It's people want to like almost project themselves into that show so they don't have to live their own lives and look at what they can improve or where they're going wrong in their own life, because it just, that's what happens, isn't it? They want that lifestyle. In fact, one lady just messaged me recently. She said, I used to watch the show religiously, and it affected my mental health because I talk about the materialistic side of it and people wanting things. We know social media is a nightmare for that. You know, it has its good uses, but also people want the lifestyle. They see it and they want it and they compare themselves. And she said it affected her mental health because she wanted to live that life and she wanted to have all them nice things. And, you know, she really struggled, you know, with spending too much money. And I suppose that's the flip side of, you know, getting sucked into something like a TV show that is exploiting wealth, really, isn't it? That's ultimately what it was.
I guess it's kind of then for you as you're growing through it, maybe you might have felt a sense of responsibility. Is this still aligned? Because like you say, you've been seen by so many different people who are going through their own shit in their own life. They're going to project on you. I think well, you've said it, you have to have thick skin. And we've seen it with shows like Love Island and people taking their own lives and things like that. Like mentally, and I think this is an important thing to maybe say, like, it's not all roses, whether it's fame, fortune, being on TV shows, like, you've got to be really tough. And again, like you said about that title of being a wag, like, a lot of people see that and a lot of people aspire to that kind of lifestyle, the cars, you know, the holidays, the house, the nice materialistic things. If you was to say like the things that are a direct consequence of being the wag that maybe people don't know, what would you share? What would you say is the other side that people have no idea about?
It's not just about, I don't think it's just even about being like the wag. You mean like just obviously the lifestyle of all that? It's getting lost in that. I speak very openly about, you know, I had a shopping addiction. I would go and shop and it was trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled from anything external, because we know anything external cannot fill us up internally. And ultimately, what is our goal in life? What is it? Happiness. It is to be happy, isn't it? And, you know, when we reaching for things or people to make us happy, that is going to have a lifespan, because, you know, I'm not saying that you obviously meet somebody and that you're going to split up with them, but there is a potential that might happen. You're always going to be left with yourself. You buy a bag, you buy a car, you buy a house, you know, you're going to get sick of it, or you're going to want to move house, or you want to change your car, or you want a new bag. But ultimately, the only thing that we can control is happiness. We always say it comes from within, and it does. And what is happiness? It's an emotion, but we reach for things externally to create happiness, to create the emotion that is happiness, but that has a lifespan on it. So the only true happiness can come from within, and that's only if we realize that and work on that emotion that we create inside of us. All our emotions are created inside of us, and whether they're good emotions or bad emotions, we are the controller, the creator of those emotions. So once we fathom that out, it's not about not having the negative emotions, because we're always going to have experiences that are going to create the negative emotions. But ultimately, it's about honoring them emotions and letting them, seeing them, you know, what is it telling me? You know, having a cry, having a duvet day, you know, and then getting up the next day and doing something about it, like going out in nature, connecting with with the earth, with everything that is. You know, I was writing something yesterday to do with the workshop, and it was about saying, what is God? You know, God is depicted in so many different interpretations in different cultures and religions. But how can that be so if God is everything and everywhere? Is God a woman? Is God a man? God's just an energy source. It is everything and everywhere, and it's within all of us. And so if that's the case, then, and we are the creator, that's because we are God. We are God. God is within us, isn't within all of us. And that's how we're all connected.
I feel like anyone that watched the show can maybe tell right now you've been on a hell of a journey and you've changed a lot. So, I mean, I absolutely love that. And I completely agree. And what's interesting, you know, you said about like getting out in the earth and things like that, that often what I've learned is we find happiness in the simpler of things. It's not, like you say, the external and all these things we're told to aspire to have. But obviously you've kind of been on that journey where you did have that stuff and did have that public domain and what have you. You've done a lot of inner work. What was that journey like? And I know it's presumably an ongoing journey, but when you say like you left the show and you was at one of your lowest and you said you had a lot of realizations, could you just maybe talk us through what those realizations were and then what the work was you had to do along the way?
So the realizations of friendships, and you know what, being on the show, it just consumes you. It consumes every part of your life, and you're talking about it on the show amongst each other, on camera, off camera. You get off camera, then you're ringing your friends and you're telling them what's gone on, and it's just a constant consummation of the show and that reality. They call it reality because it sort of becomes your reality, even though it's the furthest thing from it. So that realization, just knowing that I had to step away from there, and I'd already started doing some writing. I did a post the other day about writing, and that has been something that has been such a valuable tool. And I think everyone, and we talk about journaling, but even just writing, you know, when you're sad or when you're angry or when you're wanting to create something, or, you know, writing is so powerful because it allows you to get everything out of your brain, but it also allows you to create new things as well. And I started writing a journal. So I did my self-help journal, which is Grace, Gratitude, Grit. And I released that the year after I left the show. And I that's when I got involved in the charity and ended up going to Kenya. And that was a very, such an important thing in the transformation of my sort of awakening, if you will, or realization of who I wanted to be and who I really was deep down, and you know, seeing the world through different eyes.
What was it you saw? What were those different eyes, and what did you do out there?
So it was a charity that was for sponsoring young girls that are at risk of female genital mutilation, forced marriage and gender-based violence. And going out there, I always say Dorothy was definitely not in Kansas anymore, because it was definitely not Cheshire. And coming literally direct from the show, all these fancy parties and, you know, having my makeup done every scene, and, you know, my hair, and, you know, wanting to have a different set of clothes on every scene, and then going there with like literally minimal, like stripped back, no makeup, and just being in the countryside and seeing how these people lived in mud huts. We spoke to one young girl who was living in, I've got footage of it, and I was watching it the other day, and I do need to release it again because I want to create a bit more awareness for the charity as well. I should have said that before. I've not been able to do any fundraisers for a while because I've been on a crazy journey and been like tendering to my own wounds, if you will, do you know what I mean, and trying to build myself back up. But it suffered massively because of the whole COVID and what's happened. And it is in Kenya, in Africa, and a little tiny village, and this young girl sleeps on the floor with 6 of her sisters, and then there's another mud hut where her brothers sleep, and there's no carpets, there's no cooker, there's a little fireplace and an old teapot, and they live off this little well, it's like ground corn, which they just mix it with water, and the corn's like dried corn that they just like grind. They mix it with water, they make this dumpling, and that is their food day in, day out. There's not even nutritional value in it. Every now and again at a big celebration, they'd kill a goat and then like obviously cook that. But
what did that teach you? Because I think like it's one thing hearing it, but actually being there, surely that's a whole different story, right?
Yeah, one thing that was very apparent to me is how happy they were.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Because it's just they have so little. I mean, going to the hospital, there's no running water in the hospital, and we're holding these little tiny babies being born, and you know they had barrels because the electricity switched off at 11. We were lucky enough to have a house that had a locked door and a white toilet, because when we were on the road, it was like having to squat over the holes, and that was, I'll tell you a funny story. I ended up going to this little, we stopped, Jean, like she's amazing, who runs the charity, Jean Anderson. She's so funny, and she always like took the mickey out of me, because obviously I was still not a diva, but you know, coming from the show and like, well, is there going to be a toilet at this cafe? And she was like, yeah, of course there will, go in and ask. Like, she knew fine well there wasn't. They sent me through the cafe, through this like muddy like area, like lane, where people were just living, and they had these little stalls and stuff, and there was a little shed with the toilets in it, and a couple, and it's absolutely stunk, Matt, honestly. There's loads of flies in it, and I'd been taking malaria tablets, but I'd only just started taking them, so I wasn't covered, so I was panicking like mad I was going to get bit by a fly. But I've got all this to squat over, and I took my sunglasses off, and I started weeing, and the flies are buzzing around my bottom, so I started wafting the flies, forgetting I had my sunglasses in my hand, and like weed all over my hand and my sunglasses. So I was panicking about getting bit on the ass by a fly.
Wow.
But yeah, and then we went to another place, this hotel, and the smell was like, there was like a bakery or something downstairs, and I said, and she said, do you want a cake? I said, it smells gorgeous. And bear in mind, we've been on like there for like 5 days or something, so we were just eating all the local food and stuff, and the smell, it was just like cakes. I said, oh my god. She said, do you want me to go and get your cake? And I was like, yeah, do you think they'll do almond croissants? And I said, do I? Bloody hell. She said, like, she started laughing her head off, and she said, I'll do my best. Anyway, she came up with this bun. It was literally like, you could have thrown it, it would have bounced off the wall. It was that hard.
Oh, wow.
It's a different
so literally
world.
a culture shock, right?
Absolutely.
And that just taught you, right, that they can be happy with simpler things. I guess it couldn't be further from the lie that we're taught over here, that having more equals happiness, when actually what you've seen there is it's the exact opposite. And I think that's an important perspective for us all to really reflect on right now in our own lives, and go like, what are we striving for? Why are we striving for it? And actually, do we need that? Like, can we find more fulfillment and happiness without all that kind of stuff? Now, I know you go on. Sorry.
Go on. I was just going to say, like, you know, also, you know, when you go on the spiritual journey, there's a lot of people believe, you need to give up everything and you need to go and live simply and stuff. And I sort of went through a bit of I did ayahuasca in Mexico the year before last, and I've done some other plant medicines. And
what was all that like?
It was madness. Yeah, it was crazy. I actually would like to revisit the ayahuasca, because I did do San Pedro as well, which is like the masculine version of the cactus of ayahuasca. Yeah. And for me, that was just very visual, and go on a walk with the San Pedro, and it was such a beautiful, you know, when they say we only see 5% of our capacity of what our brain is actually can see through our own eyes, the matrix. But for me, them kind of medicines, that I feel like they open your mind to a wider perception of the reality of what is actually around us, and maybe lifts the veil a little bit on, you know, it was just like everything was crystallized now. It was just like, wow. But then when I got back to the house where we were doing the sound ceremony, I found it very heavy. So it wasn't bad, but I was just in it, you know what I mean? I couldn't even tell you what it was or where I was just in it. So when I did the ayahuasca in Mexico, I got a little bit like fearful, because I was about to move house when I got back, and I expected to have this massive release of emotion, and I was apprehensive about it before I went into it.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit scared, like when I'd shut my eyes and I'd open them, and and I just didn't allow the medicine to take me, because it will take you on a journey if you allow it. And I felt like I kept closing my eyes and opening them, but in the end I feel like she just went, I'm not showing you now. Sod off. So, and then by the time I'd sort of been like, right, I'm ready, it was like she wasn't. I still had an amazing experience, and lots of realizations have come. And I feel like each time I've done even Cambo, that's like the frog, when they put the dots on your arm, and it's the frog excretion that's used for Indigenous tribes, what they used to do to raise the vibration, to go out and allow the animals to come to them when they were hunting. So the theory is, when you do it, you set an intention, and whatever you're setting the intention to do, it will raise your vibration to attract that into your life. And I can definitely say, I've done that 3 times. I can definitely say things have evolved each time I've done it, and I've had amazing experiences of everything I've done. And everything has to be, you have to be pulled to things, people are like, oh, I'm scared of it, or that. It's not for you, it's fine. I believe we can reach that level of perception through our own journeys anyways, but even through meditation and working on the Kundalini, and there's lots of ways to do that. I think I think it just puts you into a different realm, and just opens your mind a lot quicker, should I say. And like I say, it's something that has to be done by a practitioner that knows what they're doing, that can facilitate you through that whole journey and make sure you're safe, especially if you've got any kind of demons or things that you're in your past that are going to come up for you to be able to clear. It's recommended not to do it at home on your own or anything like that.
As Davina said, do not try this at home. Absolutely. You kind of touched upon there a little bit about like going through a tough time, and I presume you're referencing the split from Wes, and that must be a huge thing, because obviously you've been together, I think, was it like about 25 years, something like that? How's that experience been, and what sort of some of the things you've learned about, kind of advice, I guess, from somebody that's maybe in a similar boat going through that? Like, what's the advice you'd give when, you've got 3 children, you've been married all those years? It's a huge, huge decision, right? And a massive life change.
Absolutely. When you said earlier about, the hardest time of your life leaving the show, it's not nearly as hard as what I've had to go through. And like, I sympathize so much with women that have partners that are very that are toxic, or that they're not getting on with them. And I am so lucky that everything has been so smooth, and there's transition. Me and Wes get on really well, and it was sort of an acceptance of like, this is the end, what I mean? We can't go no further together. And it's still, it was my choice to leave, and there is, I suppose I had to move away because I had to evolve, and the realization of what's going on now, that's when I know that's the reason for it, because of what I'm doing now and what I've learned and how I've stepped into my authentic self. And I don't think I would have done that had I stayed where I was. I just wouldn't. And I was struggling where I was, and there was lots of different things that broke down. Mainly it was communication, and it was very hard to be in an environment when 2 people struggle to communicate. And funnily enough, we had a blueprint. I did my human blueprint, when it tells you like your birth date and seeing what your personality traits are and the compatibility of your partner. And we've always struggled with communication. It's a miracle we got 25 years, but, and actually together, we don't have communication in our blueprints. Amazingly. So that was like a real like, wow, well, that's why. But apparently you can pick certain days where you can find it easier, but obviously then you'd have to like be literally following like the calendar, do you know what I mean? So moving away was the most difficult, was the kids. And obviously the kids are sometimes with Wes, sometimes with me. And I didn't want to set any rules because I moved out into another house. He stayed where we were. I didn't really like that house. Bearing in mind, we've moved from house to house to house. I'm rented now, you know, I've gone from having like the huge houses and mansions and everything. And now I'm not in that position. And again, I feel like that had to happen the way it is for me to really get back to me and appreciate money as well, and appreciate, you know, the smaller things to now what I'm doing is building it back up, but I'm building it back up on my terms. And, you know, it's my money and my career and stepping into it for myself, you know, whereas before I was Wes's wife, and I was with the kids, and that's enough. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that isn't enough, but I feel like the judgment was a lot to do with that from other people, and the wag thing, or you've just sponging off your, you know, your husband, which is ludicrous to me. So, you know, when you think now, especially all this stuff that's coming out with the masculine and feminine, and men stepping into their divine masculine energy and being the provider and the protector, you know, and we're the nurturer and we're the queen, and then they're the kid. We should treat them like the kings. And that's what I'm learning more and more, and analyzing, like, there's so much that, you know, probably I know I could have done in the relationship different. I was massively in my masculine, and all this stuff that I'm learning now about so much about the energies that we have, and even, you know, going back to my childhood and the sexual energy, and, you know, there's so much. But not seeing my kids every day has been the hardest thing, and that's only now starting to get better, because I was so broken, if you will, by that not seeing them, and it almost like pushed them away a bit more because they see me upset and they didn't really know how to handle it either, you know. And then I've had to say, oh, you're coming to mummy's tonight? No, I'm still going to stay at dad's. And I would literally drive home crying my eyes out, you know, oh, you know, they don't love me anymore. And it was really hard, but definitely I've turned a corner with it all now, and I feel like the relationship with my girls is getting stronger again. And it's almost like for them it's a big transition as well, the realization of you know, not living in the same household and them having to adapt to it all. So it's all a process, but I'm getting there. Definitely.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And if you can share with us, like, what are some of the things when it comes to like keeping your mindset positive and looking after your mental and physical health? What are some of your go-to rituals? I know you've spoken about things like grounding, you've spoken about things like yin yoga. Is there anything like advice you would give to people, like things that you just think are great that we should all be doing?
Meditating, 100%. And, you know, again, I would say meditating is not something that is you just do it once and then you're amazing at it. And even there's so many times when I do it and I think, well, what was the point in that? You know, my mind didn't switch off, but I would have still got benefit from it. You know, I definitely will. And there's so many different ways of doing it. There's, you know, there's the chanting, there's the mantras, there's guided meditation. There's even just what I've been doing lately is standing in the garden and doing grounding and meditating at the same time. There you go. You can do it both.
Talk to us about what grounding is and what the benefits are for it. Somebody who's maybe not heard of that concept.
So grounding is, well, it can be done different ways. Obviously, it's pouring down with rain like it has just been before. And people that want to go out and stand in the rain and put the feet on the garden. I mean, grounding can be done.
Just to say, we've got Heidi listening to this, and I've seen a video where she did exactly that. She loves it when it rains. She gets out, whatever the weather, and totally in touch with nature. So maybe you can.
Yeah. I'm saying you definitely can, but people don't want to. But you know what? I always have a pull to go outside as well when it's absolutely pouring down and just standing in the rain. And, you know, I've done it before, but I actually nearly did it the other day. But just being in nature grounds you, you know. That's the concept, hugging a tree, you know, going out and hugging a tree, and the energy that you get from that is just as powerful as taking your shoes and socks off and standing on the ground. So
does that mean you're officially what they call a tree hugger?
I'm absolutely a tree hugger. One of the kids' t-shirts I've done, this is one of the kids' t-shirts, as I said before, is eat, sleep, manifest, repeat.
Nice.
This is a kid's t-shirt, it's 9 to 11, but one of them says tree hugger on as well.
Love it.
So yeah, so doing that, and or just visualizing, you know, when you're meditating, you can actually visualize the energy that's coming through your crown chakra all the way down into your root chakra, into the ground, and just visualize it like roots of a tree connecting you and grounding you and making you. Grounding is like to enforce the root chakra to make us feel safe and secure, and oh God, it's got so many benefits. There is, especially when you're going outside to ground, it's negative ions that come up from the earth that are we are electromagnetic beings. The sun is electric and the ground is magnetic, so we're sort of like the battery in between. So going out that's why we need sunlight as well. You know, there's all this thing, there's been so much fear around the sun and like blocking out the sun, and wear your sunglasses. You know, shouldn't actually wear sunglasses before you go outside, because it actually stops the message from your eyes to your brain that you're going to be exposed to sunlight, and that's when you burn more easily. So so there's so much. So yeah, it's good for sleep, it's good for your muscles, it's good for your like anxiety levels, stress, you know, energy. It's good for so many different things, like depression. You know, being outside, like you say, it is a battery, and rubber soles have been invented purposely to prevent us connecting with the earth, because it can't go through rubber. So years ago, there wasn't rubber soles on our shoes. So that's been designed to stop us with that connection of the earth.
And we wonder why. That's a whole different story, right? But okay. And again, it's about getting back to the basics. It's about almost like thinking what, you know, before there was all this thing of mankind creating all these structure, I guess, and control and all that. It's like, what did humans have? And it's like, it's the basics in it, being out in nature, eating natural foods, getting sunlight, all that kind of stuff. Talk to us then about the retreats as well that you now have, and just a little bit about, you know, what you do there, what people can expect, what they're going to get from doing it, and where they can do it.
So the retreats, Eat, Pray and Self-Love, we do have a residency at Arnside in Cumbria, which is just a small townhouse. It sleeps 6, which we run regular retreats there. We tried to do once a month over a weekend. We've had one men's retreat. We did advertise for another, but we only got a couple of people, so we ended up cancelling it. We actually really loved the men's retreat as well, because we had such a laugh, and it was lovely to bring that energy as well, the masculine energy, and the guys that we had on were amazing. And but the women's retreats, obviously, go on. What are you going to say?
I'm just looking at who we've got on. We've got James, we've got Sean. Maybe we need to do it. We need to get down and bring the men's one back. I've never done a retreat. I've always wanted to. So maybe that's something we need to sign up to, boys.
Yeah, well, let us know. We can definitely sort that out. So for the women's retreats, obviously we've been running them regular. We have got a mixed retreat in Portugal in August, the 22nd to the 27th, and we do have spaces. It's a huge venue. It's like an hour and 40 or 45 minutes from Porto Airport. It's in the countryside. It's got a lake on the complex where you can do kayaking and paddle boarding. It's got a huge gym. We've got a guy called Jory come and do PT fitness and strength training as well this time. Last year we didn't have it there. But I'm doing the yoga, obviously the yin in the evening. We've got sound healing. We've got workshops that we do, self-love, manifesting, bit of inner child work. There's a creative space, all plant-based food, obviously by lovely Sophie, my business partner and one of my besties, who's just had a baby, so she's bringing her with her as well this time. Nice. So the food is all sourced locally as well. So Portugal is only one of the only places where there hasn't been war, and they don't spray the pesticides like they do in other countries. So it's super, super fresh, and honestly the vegetables are like massive, and you know, crazy and they taste so good. So the food's amazing as well. So there's so much. So we've got women's retreat next week actually in Arnside. And then with Leanne wants to come to Portugal, can come.
I'm sold. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, and then the Portugal one, and then we've got another women's retreat in September. But if you want us to do a men's retreat, you let us know, men only, or but come to Portugal, it'll be even better. 5 nights in Portugal, and honestly, it's just amazing. It's going to be so beautiful. They've just had a spa fitted as well, so they've got sauna and steam there now as well.
Nice.
And there's just so much space there, and go for conscious walks up. It's like in the forest, and yeah, it's amazing. It's a real opportunity to reconnect and recharge and learn a bit more about yourself, but also learn from other people on the retreats. That's what I love most, is hearing people's stories and connecting with them and learning from them, because that's what we're always learning, aren't we? And if we're not learning, we're not growing, and if we're not growing, what's the point of being here?
100%. You're definitely speaking our language. Absolutely love it, Leanne. All right. So just going to go into some of the more generalized questions now that I ask to all our guests each week that we do this podcast. So the first question is, what is some of the worst advice you've ever received in your life, and why?
The worst advice I would say is that you have to work 9 to 5 and super hard, or even longer hours than that, to be successful. And just we know that it isn't like that. There is so many different ways to just doing things that you love is what will enable you to step into your authentic self, and that will bring the abundance to you when you're doing something you love, and it will be in an authentic way. I always say when things are that hard, there's so much resistance. It's probably because we're doing the wrong thing, we're following the wrong path. So it's probably just you don't have to work 100 hours a week to be successful. You just need to get back to who you are and the core of what you love doing. The rest will fall into place.
Yeah, totally agree. Love that. On the flip side, what's some of the best advice you've received, and why?
Probably what I've just said about doing what you love. Always do something that you love, and think about the why and not the how. The how will just come to you. And always, what I've learned from my mum is always wear a smile, because you can change someone's day by just smiling at them, and noticing them.
Beautiful. Love that. Okay. The next one, and I feel like we've not really touched upon this subject, because again, from sort of seeing some of your content and stuff, I know this is something that you are maybe aligned with. And it's this concept that I have, that I feel a lot of traditional education maybe didn't equip us to truly be successful at life. It maybe helped us learn how to get a job, follow the rules, pay our bills, pay our taxes, and die. But when it comes to truly being happy and fulfilled and successful, I feel like we don't necessarily learn that at school. So I'm talking about things like mental health, self-development, physical health, nutrition, business, finances, those kind of things. So I'm interested, if you was to share kind of 3 life lessons, 3 bits of advice that you would give people that you feel if they followed these 3 pieces of advice, they would be on the right path to true fulfillment and success, that maybe you didn't learn from traditional education, what would those 3 pieces of advice be?
Always be yourself, because people will see through you if you're not, and it's really hard to play a role forever. You need to always just be yourself. And
also you attract people that like you for the wrong reasons, right? If you're not being you. So yeah, great advice.
Appreciate the small things. Appreciate the small things in life. Appreciate the big things as well, but always appreciate the small things, because the more energy you put into gratitude, that will automatically create abundance. It's like a flower. When you water it with gratitude, it's only going to grow. I say what you reap, you will sow. What you put out, you will get back. But always have a mindset of gratitude, and What's the next one? You are the most important person in your life. You are the most important person in your life, and don't forget that. Don't overlook yourself to make somebody else happy. When you should be setting boundaries and looking after you. Self-love, isn't it? Self-love is the most important of all. And without loving ourselves, truly loving ourselves, we can't really fully love anyone else properly to the fullest of what we can.
So true. Oh man, Leanne, this has been ace. I'm gutted because there's so much I wanted to ask you that we've not even touched upon, so maybe we'll have to do something again at some point. But I just want to say thank you for such an authentic, genuine chat. It's been so lovely to hear. If people are maybe discovering you for the first time and they want to see more what you do, the retreats, maybe follow your content online and so on, where's the best places that people can find you?
So on Instagram and stuff, or the website?
Wherever the main things are, if you want to give a couple.
So Eat, Pray and Self-Love Instagram, or eatprayandselflove.co.uk is the website. So there's obviously all the dates of the retreats and stuff and what's going on. If you become a subscriber, you do get a bit of discount off Portugal, and there is a newsletter that gets put out as well with different events, and there's some tips on there and sometimes some little recipes and things like that. And we are working on some other things that at the moment as well, so that's exciting. And I will mention my With Love Leanne, which I've not really done much promo about, but obviously the t-shirts, and I've got meditations on there as well, guided meditations, which I'm planning to record some more guided meditations as well to put out on the Eat, Pray, Love. And my kids' books that were coming soon. They will be coming soon. I know it's been a while, but when the time is right, divine timing and all that. So that's withloveleanne.co.uk.
Brilliant. Make sure you check out that stuff, guys. Final question before we head over to a little Q&A with our members tonight. Leanne, what is your definition of success?
Happiness. My definition is that's my goal in life, is to be happy. And when I'm happy, I'm going to be successful. We can reach for things, and and that's okay. And having things, I will say the thing before we end, touching on the money thing and that perception, I said about, in spiritual, you have to give everything up. And because we had a lot of people take advantage of us when we had lots of money, I would hear myself saying things like money is the root of all evil. And, and it was that subconscious then belief that when you're putting that out there, then, you're telling the universe you don't want it. And, success is doing something that you love. And when you do something that you love, it makes you happy, and then the abundance will come, and it will come without even trying. And when we focus on getting and doing and having, that's when you sort of push it further away, don't you? And when you find your path of least resistance by just following your heart and following and doing something you love, and then you will create that happiness, and the rest will fall into place.
Leanne, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm just gonna open it up now. If you guys know the score, if you want to ask Leanne a question tonight, if you put a 1 in the chat, we'll go in order.